around, the news does carry some weight in terms of changing legislation. But the fact that the news has been so hyped up, right, by saying like, oh no, well, miners are moving out of China, this is bad. Oh, in what world is that bad for Bitcoin?
Hello, welcome to Crypto Interviews. My name is Claudio, and this is CryptoStream, the channel where I do crypto news, reviews, tutorials, and interviews. And joining me today once again is Seth Estrada from Mine Your Biz or Mine Your Bitcoin, depending on how you look at it based on his hat. And today we're going to be talking about the China Bitcoin Mining Fud that we've got going on at the moment. For the last couple of days, everyone's talking about that because it could have affected the crypto market. That might have been one of the reasons. So we'll find out, what is it really like? Is it really FUD, or could we see it as something positive moving forward? So let's talk about that, Seth, if you want, and maybe just kind of give a quick background on about you and your channel. And of course, you can find a link to his channel if you're interested in the pinned comment of this video, or in the description if you're watching this on library.
Yep, sure thing. First off, Claudio, thanks for having me back on. It's always a pleasure, man. I mean, we every time that we chat off camera, I'm always struck by how the crypto content scene tends to draw some very level-headed and just cool people into the space. It kind of makes me sad that I don't live closer to where you are, somewhere in Western Europe, so we can go hang out in person sometime. But just really appreciate having me back on. Yeah, I'm just saying, if I were anywhere else,
Spanish as well, so that's even easier then.
Right. But if I were anywhere in the Iberian Peninsula, even not in Spain, we could at least like meet up somewhere, you know? So
yeah, for sure.
Be a lot easier. But thanks for having me back on. Yeah, the FUD coming out of China, this is not something that we haven't seen before. This market moves in cycles. And of course, it's dominated by narratives and it's dominated by sentiment, which is why we keep seeing FUD, at least in the Western world, printed about China and Chinese mining, because it scares investors into doing whatever the desired publishing group wants them to do, or just helps shake out weak hands so that you are able to buy, as a larger investor of fund, you're able to buy more of the available liquidity of Bitcoin specifically, and then maybe some other coins like top market cap coins like Ethereum that you may have an interest in. So this is not new, right? This happens before. It's going to happen again at some point, even with it seeming so final within China, because this time around, there's the news does carry some weight in terms of changing legislation. But the fact that the news has been so hyped up, right, by saying like, oh no, well, miners are moving out of China, this is bad. Oh, in what world is that bad for Bitcoin? It's a decentralized system that doesn't require China, and it shouldn't preclude China either, right? It can include China, and we can absolutely enjoy the price of Bitcoin and then the relative lift to all other assets in the crypto market. We can enjoy that regardless of where you are in the crypto market. We can enjoy that whether China is involved or not. Doesn't matter. So yeah, if miners leave, like, big deal. Just means the hash rate goes somewhere else. And that may mean that some of the block reward goes to other places too. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing for China, or for Bitcoin rather, that China is not participating.
No, absolutely. And it's all about decentralization. And I think that's the beauty of Bitcoin, isn't it? The fact that you can mine from anywhere in the world. Obviously, it depends on how your setup is, right? Because we know that the difficulty can take up a lot of resources. So if you don't have the right setup, then you're probably not going to mine any Bitcoin, right? You're going to compete with the big boys, with all the pools, unless you're joining a pool and so on. And I know you spoke about that the last time when you joined my channel. But let's actually talk about the easy miners. So where do you think they're actually going? Because we're seeing the shipments. We're seeing not the shipments, but we're seeing them pack up. We're seeing them remove everything from those warehouses. So where do you think they'll be going? Because I don't think they're going to the bin, right?
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely nothing goes to waste in crypto mining, especially in Bitcoin mining. Miners that were previously thought like undesirable or unusable because they weren't very efficient, they just move to different markets where there's free hydroelectric power or there's free geothermal power. Like, for example, right now in El Salvador, where you have the president Nayib Bukele, who is being very public about his support of Bitcoin and talking now seriously about airdropping $30 US dollars worth of Bitcoin to every adult citizen in El Salvador right now. I think that's going to represent over 4.1 or 4.2 million people times $30. So this is not a small deal here, not a small feat, but he's
where did he get the funding from that? Sorry, to actually airdrop so much.
It's a good question. It's a very good question. Where does any of the administration in El Salvador get any of their funding since he took office? But that's maybe a conversation for another time. I think there's a lot more than meets the eye about Nayib Bukele and his administration. and their alleged 91 or 92% approval rating. It doesn't seem real to me, but yeah, again, a conversation for another time. He's also talked about nationalizing mining infrastructure there by capturing geothermal energy from a dormant volcano, where they can build a facility that basically just takes the heat from the volcano, heats up a bunch of clean water so that it doesn't pollute the turbine system that then creates energy, and then it goes through a closed loop, creates energy, goes back to a boiler, and then the volcano heats it up again. So it's funny. It's this old school, like steampunk era technology, but being applied to a volcano and then being used to capture electricity instead of just powering a machine directly with the steam. But he's talking about that. These are the kinds of markets that old used mining hardware goes to, and it goes cheap because it can no longer be used in a place where there's any cost for power. So mining rigs from 6 years ago, you wouldn't see them anywhere in the Western world, right? In developed nations where you have to pay, say, like the US dollar equivalent of, say, like 10 or 15 cents per kilowatt hour, or like in Germany, they've got it very bad. The US dollar equivalent would be like 25 cents per kilowatt hour for power. It's terrible. The worst decision you can make in mining is to try to set up shop in Germany.
And it's gone up a lot in price in Spain here too. There's actually a lot of debate going on the news, and people are complaining because the tax is just so high on the energy. It's just overpriced.
You need to discover a volcano somewhere offshore from Spain, I think is what El Salvador is proving.
And talking about that, what about the cooling? I mean, is that not as important, do you think? Because I know places like Iceland, for example, or maybe Siberia, where it's super cold, you're not going to need to worry about cooling. Is that as important as electricity, do you think, when it comes to mining at a large level? Like we're talking about warehouse level or...
Yeah, no, Claudia, I'm going to tell you, just for the record, no, it's not. I've had investment groups ask me to set up shop for them in the high desert of the Western United States. Wow. So yeah, it's really a lot more about airside economy. And there are some limitations as to what you can do to improve performance under those really hot conditions. But for mining, it's all about achieving sort of a balance between all the various factors, cost for power and cooling. But it doesn't automatically follow that a place like Iceland is necessary for Bitcoin mining to be profitable. It can be profitable in any number of other conditions as well. And if you want to improve on the free cooling of the environment, then as we've seen in the past, you can create shipping containers or fully enclosed submersible containers that can go under the ocean and reside near the ocean floor, where again, you get passive cool temperatures, ambient temperatures for free, just because that's the environment that you have the whole data center living in. Initially, that was explored, I think, by Microsoft for typical data centers that just do shared, say, like email hosting or website hosting and other services that are typically consumed by many, many people. I think maybe for their Azure public cloud system. But it stands to reason you could do the same for Bitcoin mining as well if you wanted to. But then the cost of transportation out to these remote areas becomes a problem. Like, how do you service a data center that is half a mile under the ocean?
Exactly. Yeah, and you need to have people going living there, no, or at least checking it very often, because you need to have maintenance, regular maintenance, I guess, right, when you have got so many ASICs.
Exactly. So if you set up a mining operation out in Siberia, don't call me. I'm not going to be the guy that lives there. That's not going to happen. I'll advise you not to go there. There you go. That's the free advice your audience gets from me on setting up a large scale mining operation. If you go to Siberia, forget about hiring top tier talent, because they're not going to want to go there. But you can set up shop anywhere, really. And as long as you have the correct parameters in place for cooling, it can be anywhere, including someplace like the Carolinas here in the United States, which is fairly far south, actually. It's not really up in we call it the Great White North, near the Great Lakes, or anywhere the temperature gets very, very cold for part of the year. It's actually quite hot and muggy, very humid too. Conditions that you would think aren't very good for a data center, but there are plenty of mining operations that set up shop there and do so profitably. Wow. So yeah, interesting. There's more than one way to handle that problem.
And what about the hydroelectric powered mining areas? Like, for example, in Georgia, there's a lot of hydroelectric power there. So do you think like places like that would benefit from mining as well?
Absolutely. So not only do places like Georgia, but as well as Kazakhstan right now. So Kazakhstan is a hotspot because of an initiative that took place in 2018. The infrastructure was built for an additional, I think, about 1.5 gigawatts. It may have been a little bit more than that. It hit my radar tangentially by another consultant who was actually personally working on that rollout for that infrastructure. But that's brand new infrastructure that was conceived of primarily for Bitcoin and broader cryptocurrency mining. No other purpose. It was not for any kind of data center for Google or for Microsoft to use. I don't know what the business relations are like at Google and Microsoft as far as like, oh yeah, we really need a data center in Kazakhstan. I don't think that's a concern for them. But investor groups noticed that there was very good opportunity for setting up brand new, fresh hydroelectric power generation in Kazakhstan. So where there are large bodies of water and dams can be built for hydroelectric facilities, there's absolutely an opportunity. And that's taking shape, as you mentioned, in Georgia, in Kazakhstan, and in countries that we don't typically think of as being top contributors to tech. But they're interested. And investors who are smart will look for these less used resources.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's awesome. And let's talk a little bit about just to go back to China. So we know that the mining operations are shut down there, right? So now the question is, which other countries do you think are top in the list in terms of supporting Bitcoin in that sense with the mining of the blocks?
That's a great question, Claudia. So I think as far as what we're seeing right now, first off, you mentioned before that we see videos and photos of mining rigs being stacked on pallet loaders and onto various like freight systems and such. First off, some of the empty mining operations that we're seeing in the news media, that we're seeing especially in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency targeted media, like the blogs and such, a lot of those photos are actually archive photos from several years ago. So we can't believe everything we see there. The news is verified that yes, many mines are closing up shop in China, but a lot of the media is trying to, again, it's part of the FUD cycle, right? Which is, it runs parallel with the hype cycle in the industry. But a lot of those photos that we're seeing, some of them are out of date and they don't accurately reflect what it literally looks like on the ground.
So it could actually be FUD from 2020, early 2018, when we had the initial FUD with China.
Some of it could be. Now, it is confirmed that a lot of these mining operations have been given till a certain date to close up shop and move out. So that is confirmed. But a lot of the photos that you see where it's like, oh, look, it's an empty mining facility. In some cases, those are photos from when they were initially built, construction photos, showing that the electrical systems were just barely being installed. And you can tell in some cases because they don't have any kind of Cat 6 cable running through their cable runs yet, right? It's like they have no network. How could they possibly be running miners? How could they possibly be packing up if there is no network for them to run on in the first place? So in some cases, you can't believe everything that you see.
Yeah,
but apropos, like the whole conversation we're having here, it is confirmed that they are moving out of China, but don't get too invested in like the videos and the photos that you see coming out, air quotes, coming out of China. The top list of countries that will see Chinese miners move to, Kazakhstan is very high on the list because of that project that took place in 2018 and 2019, where they created that infrastructure and they just knew that they would become a competitor to any of the other large-scale mining operations in Ukraine and in China. It follows. Where you have very cheap power, Bitcoin miners, they want to go there. So this mining operation or this power and infrastructure operation in Kazakhstan, they line themselves up. Nayib Bukele in El Salvador is making a very smart move. Again, I'm not going to bother with trying to answer the question that you said before, like where are they getting the money from? I don't know.
We don't know.
But they're smart to try at least to build up the infrastructure so that miners around the world will say, well, let's see, El Salvador, they honor it as a form of legal tender. So if I have Bitcoin, it will be accepted by service providers there. If I wanted to pay employees to manage a mining facility there, they're already legally permitted to receive Bitcoin, not just as a cross-border payment or in the ways that we've been using it so far, but they can take their salary, go directly to people that they're responsible for, like financially to pay bills with, pay their rent, buy their food, whatever it is that my employees need there, they're covered by me paying them natively in Bitcoin. So you can set up a mining operation there entirely run on smart contracts and have it mostly automated. There's quite a bit of benefit to people who are interested in Bitcoin mining or who already have Bitcoin mining operations, very seriously considering moving to El Salvador. Countries like them, I mean, I've been saying this for months. People in the United States, like just because of this is where I live, right? It's home. So I would love to see people who I know and am familiar with, see them win in this way. But if they were smart, they'd want to build up the least expensive and most attractive mining infrastructure here. And same with any country in the world. If you know that you have access to capital and access to good, intelligent people, why in the world wouldn't you want to attract more of the same?
Taxes,
right?
taxes,
Yeah.
taxes is a
Yeah.
problem, I
Right.
think.
So,
And regulation.
yeah. So, fair point. I mentioned, earlier on in the interview that if you're in Germany, there's kind of no hope for you because of the way that the grid is laid out there. But in other areas of this country and other areas of the world, you may have extremely inexpensive nuclear power, for example, and good. I mean, France, aren't they 100% nuclear? I think, or 80+% nuclear in France. I want to say they are. So yeah, there are various different options around the world where maybe you've got an extremely cost-effective way of generating power. And if you do, and it's a fairly business-friendly environment, as an investor, why wouldn't you want people to join you there, right? Why wouldn't you want the best and the brightest to join you and help make where you live that much better? Because you're supporting Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and you're pioneering a future in these markets.
Absolutely.
That's my take on it.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that. That was really, really interesting. And I'm actually curious to get your thoughts on, at the moment, like which do you think, where do you see like mining being executed the most in terms of blocks being verified? In which country, like, do you think that's happening at the moment the most, now that China is out of commission?
Well, it's happening slowly, and then it'll happen suddenly as we near that deadline. And there are some pool monitors and some hash rate monitors that I don't have handy right now. I apologize. As a reference, I don't have them handy. But that's a beautiful part about Bitcoin, is that you can verify all of this, right? You wouldn't need to trust a person like me. There are resources that can show you where most of them are being verified. However, one thing that makes it tricky is that some farms will use a VPN in order to
I see.
access
So
more efficiently.
we can't say it's happening in this country right now. I can't say like United States is where most of the mining is taking place right now, right? As in the top level.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, but there is a very large presence of Bitcoin miners here in the United States. There's a very large South American presence in Bitcoin mining. Venezuela, participation in Bitcoin mining went way up after the last bull run because of the terrible situation with their national currency at that time. And so just participation in general within Bitcoin was huge in Venezuela, but not on the same level as Bitcoin mining in the United States or in Western Europe, but especially not in the Eastern Europe countries. Eastern European countries like Ukraine, there's a significant amount of hash rate that comes out of Ukraine. And then, as you mentioned, very cheap power in Georgia. And then you wind up, no matter which market you go to, you wind up having some of the best and brightest out of Poland migrating, emigrating to those areas to be like, all right, we're going to go run this place.
Wow, awesome. So US doesn't top the list then at the moment?
I think it is towards the top of the list, but I don't know that it's number one right now.
Okay.
And I don't have such nationalist pride that I think that's the most important thing.
No, I was just thinking because of the size and the fact that there's so many people interested in it. I was just thinking that maybe they are topping the list after China. But wow.
Yeah, I think that's likely, but I can't say that for sure. It could be another. And again, depends on the day of the week.
And
could
the
be another
VPN and all that. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Now the next topic that I want to talk about, I know we talked about this off the recording, is PRTI. Is the way Bitcoin is being mined. That's an interesting one. I want you to talk about that a little bit, please, if you could.
Yeah. So disclosure to your audience, I have no investment interest, nor am I associated with them, and they don't know that I'm talking about them. Right. First off, PRTI is a company that I'm not directly associated with. It's called Product Recovery Technology International. It's an acronym.
Yeah.
And what they do is they call it thermal demanufacturing, where they break down tires into oil. So automotive vulcanized rubber on tires, they have a process by which they break that down into oil, and then that oil is broken down into syngas and carbon char and steel, so separated into its core components. Of course, the steel can be reused, it can be sold back into that industry, and there's a thriving steel industry. The United States, of course, doesn't necessarily lead the world in steel manufacturing or aluminum anymore, but there's a really good market for that if you can get it in bulk. So they're reclaiming that from tires, but the remainder is carbon char and then syngas. And that syngas can be burned, and on site power can be generated to mine with. And this company, PRTI, they do mine. They mine with over 6 megawatts of power. It's a significant amount of mining power that they generate on site. And they get it entirely in a not a green way like we would normally think of green energy, right? With like photovoltaics, panels for collecting solar energy, or wind turbines, or hydroelectric, or even now with volcano, there's discussions about volcanoes, even geothermal energy. It's very different in that they're reusing consumer products, and they're being extremely responsible in how they recycle and reuse consumer products that would normally just go to a landfill and pollute the earth. So it's pretty cool what they're doing. And I wish that more companies would do this in more locations and provide a new way to generate energy for more, not just miners, but for all kinds of grids.
Yeah, I guess when they get to a point when they manage to automate the whole process, you're probably going to see more companies trying to do something like that as well.
I believe they do offer some kind of consulting services to help set up this operation in other countries, but their flagship location is, I've confirmed, they're definitely mining with over 6 megawatts of power. And that's a really cool, it's not like the biggest mining operation that's out there. You can definitely find mining data centers that have 20 or 30 megawatts of power or more. But what they're doing is significant in that 100% of the energy comes from just turning tires back into steel, carbon char, and syngas.
Yeah.
It's kind of
awesome.
Kind of unreal.
Yeah. I mean, and the way we're expanding with technology at the moment around the world, it's just crazy. Like moving towards robotics and stuff. It won't be long before we'll all be flying, right? We're no longer going to be driving on the ground. So yeah, that would be interesting. No, and the other thing I want to talk to you about, because the last time when we spoke was quite some time ago, before all the hype with Ethereum and so on. We actually spoke about mining in general, right? But I'm curious to get your thoughts on Ethereum mining. I mean, is it still super profitable at the moment? Because I know that at the peak of the market, when Ethereum was priced at over $3,000, right? I guess mining was very profitable then, but what about the difficulty? So I'm just curious to get your thoughts, because I know you're deep in this.
Yeah, so I went live not long ago talking about the absolute state of cryptocurrency or Ethereum mining profitability today. And there are cards that are now 6 years old, GPUs that are now 6 years old, that they have no business mining anymore, but they're still in the money. So it is quite profitable, far more profitable than it was in the bear market. Not as profitable as it was, say, when, as you mentioned, Ethereum broke $3,000 per coin. But the difficulty versus the fees being awarded because of transaction validation, right? So in addition to the typical block reward on Ethereum, there's also a boost to the mining payout, the mining block reward per block, depending on,
I mean, the transaction fees are humongous, like
big time, because of DeFi, right? DeFi summer led to the best mining conditions for Ethereum miners ever. So DeFi summer moving forward, things have never really gone back. Sure, there's a bit of a support level in terms of participation in DeFi, but it hasn't totally slowed down, because you have all these other systems like, say, Celsius and others that have essentially a DeFi backend that requires a certain number of transactions to happen automatically. So even with staking platforms and with other sort of like esoteric sides of the Ethereum ecosystem, you have to transact, period. Otherwise, smart contracts are not executed.
Exactly.
And so there are fees everywhere, and miners are just swimming in this ocean of fees. It's great.
So would you say it was more profitable to mine Ethereum than Bitcoin?
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, undoubtedly.
Are we talking
yes.
2x more profitable or less?
I haven't done a full breakdown of the capex versus the time to the time.
Yeah, I mean, taking out the cost and everything, just like the pure profit that you get. Would you say it was more or less around 2x compared to Bitcoin if you were to use exactly the same spec, exactly the same?
Man, it's tough because I haven't done a breakdown like that side by side just yet. But what I'll say, Claudio, is that for your audience, or for anybody who's watching, if you've got a gaming rig, you can participate in Ethereum mining right now, and you can earn money right now and be profitable over your cost of power in almost any market, including the markets where power is ridiculously priced, like California here in the States, or Germany in Western Europe. So yeah, even in places where the cost of power seems unreasonable, there are several people who are mining Ethereum and still making money.
Wow.
It seems irrational.
And you get your return on your investment pretty soon. Like, I mean, considering the cost of the equipment and stuff.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
get
absolutely.
it like, you'd say a couple of months, maybe a bit longer.
No, I don't know that I don't know that it's reliably a couple of months. It could be a bit longer now. And for the benefit of anybody in your audience who's looking at mining seriously, I'm actually cautioning the at-home miner or the mid-scale miner not to get into hardware purchases right now, because we're so close to the second half of this bull run. If there is another leg up, and we talked about this on Telegram, if there's another leg up in this bull run, we don't know for sure, right? That's all that means is we go into price discovery and we have the opportunity to go up. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll be accepted. It could be rejected.
Exactly.
Another couple of times.
That's the risk.
Yeah. So with getting into hardware purchases right now, all bets are off. There's no guarantee that you will definitely return on your investment.
So it's better to wait for the market to go up, and then it's worth investing in the hardware and obviously the mining. Or
maybe I would say, if I think we passed the point of no return for people who are on the fence, I'll put it that way. If you're definitely invested in mining as a business and you have a specific business plan associated with it, where you know what your margins are and you know that you will definitely write off your losses at the end of the year, then maybe you got to keep running your business, right? As you've outlined your business plan.
Exactly.
So probably not a huge risk for people who are involved in mining as a business. For anybody who isn't involved in mining as a business and is just mining at home, that's where I think you stand the most to lose, because you may not already be in the habit of writing off certain business related expenses and losses at the end of the year. And as we both just acknowledged, we could go into price discovery again. And if we do, good for you. It'd be a very happy day. We can also explore the teens, right? With Bitcoin, right? We could see $18,000 again, and nobody likes to think about that. It's a painful reality for the rest of the market too, including Polkadot and every
the
other
old
asset.
coins. Oh my God! Yeah, don't remind us of Polkadot. It's going to be absolutely destroyed if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, it'll have resilience, though, obviously, because of what's being worked on in that ecosystem, right? It's great, and I love the mission that it's not intended to be a direct competitor to Ethereum, and, or the others as well.
They're going to work together eventually. They're going to connect.
And they appear to be doing really great work. So I think it's got good resilience at the end of whatever maybe any negative correction could be. But for miners specifically, you live and die on those margins, because you have fiat costs, fixed costs in the real world. So when coin prices do this, guess what? Your power bill still does this.
That's very true. That's a good point.
It's a very, very scary thing. So if relative to your power bill, that means your profits are doing this too. Like, it's that tiny little bit of the wave that pops over the baseline, right? Where it's like, am I in the profit? Yes. Am I back in the negative? Oh, ouch, this is painful. Like, and then you find that equilibrium, right? When you average it out over the time frame that you're going to mine. I think right now it's just very difficult. I'll just say, like, people who I like, my family, my friends, people who I know closely and I care about, I'm recommending that they not buy mining gear right now.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Sit on the sideline, just watch. Go into proof of stake if you want to mine something for now. Yeah. Less risky. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Or DeFi, right? Find a staking platform.
Farming
you feel strong about.
Farming for sure. Yeah. Farming is still profit, especially now with the prices being so low. If you're into farming, not financial advice, but definitely, I mean, if you have the right setup, if you purchase the right types of tokens, you could perform farming, and you could generate quite a lot of income as well. So yeah, that's definitely something to go for. And just to kind of talk about this one last time, the China Fud. I mean, do you see it as Fud? Just kind of a final thought, or do you think this is something beneficial for Bitcoin, and we could come back from this sort of mining situation with China, or do you think that China is an important country where we should actually be seeing Bitcoin mining continue to take place, and you think that maybe the regulation should change, and we should hopefully see Chinese miners be able to mine once again in China?
Yeah,
sorry, maybe that was too much, because I've asked.
It is a little bit complex.
But ultimately, what I want to know, and maybe the audience too, is how do you see the impact, the side effect of this FUD that has happened, and do you think we need to have the miners back in China?
Well, I think that Bitcoin is resilient as a network. It was designed to be so-called anti-fragile, air quotes. And it will be resilient towards any kinds of changes in the net hash, regardless of where it comes from in the world. Bitcoin will accept it. It's permissionless. So you can be whatever you can. That's what makes it kind of so dangerous too, in that you can have attackers who intentionally take over data centers to mine with them. Thankfully, not so much with Bitcoin because of the SHA-256 algorithm not being competitive on commodity hardware, even at the data center level at scale. So ASICs make more sense. But Bitcoin doesn't care. Doesn't care where the hash rate comes from. You can mine on a laptop and not be competitive, not get block rewards, and Bitcoin will still accept your hashes. The network will. You can solo mine to the Bitcoin network after that fashion, and the Bitcoin network is stronger for it. So there's not going to be any, I think, negative side effects to the Bitcoin network or the Bitcoin price long term with mining leaving China. That said, my heart goes out to the Chinese people and to the frontline workers who tended to these farms, and to the investment groups locally who had put life savings or their investment capital into these farms and really hoped to see it do well in their country. I think that's a real shame for them. And I think from a political perspective, I think it's a mistake on China's part to ban mining, and I think that they will regret it in the long term. Bitcoin, though, itself will go
Doesn't
on,
care.
and not at all. Yeah.
You could even have 2 or 3 guys like you running the whole network, and it's still going to survive, just to give an example, right? In the absolute worst case scenario where everyone stops mining, you'll always have at least a couple of guys who'll say, I'm going to mine Bitcoin. So
absolutely.
That become the most profitable for sure.
Yeah. 100%. But yeah, I think it's FUD. I think it's designed to shake out weak hands. I think that people who understand fundamentally what Bitcoin is, what it does, how it works, as you mentioned before, proof of work or just consensus models for crypto networks, the best of them could suffer a 30% consensus shutdown for whatever reason, whether it's because proof of stake, like signaling from wallets or whatever else, being able to sign from wallets, if it were shut down in some way, then consensus could continue without them. That's why the Satoshi-like consensus on proof of work on Bitcoin, why it's so popular, is because you can see 30% of the hash rate disappear literally overnight because of an electromagnetic pulse or a solar flare shutting off power to half of the globe, and Bitcoin marches on.
Exactly. You need to cut the power everywhere in the globe if you want to kill Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's the only way. Cool. I'd like to thank you very much, Seth, for coming on and explaining this and hopefully clarifying some of the FUD and kind of talking about what the vision could be for miners around the world. So that's great. It kind of puts people at ease, I would say, because, it just shows you that, you can't, even if you kill off one country, which is the giant country, right? The biggest country when it comes to mining, Bitcoin goes on, right? At the end of the day, other companies are going to try and set up shop in other countries. So yeah, thank you very much for joining. Hopefully I'll see you next time once again and talk about mining. If there's going to be more FUD or maybe some positive news, not necessarily FUD, right? We got to look on the optimistic side. Once again, if you want to find the Seth's channel, Mine Your Biz, you can find it in the pinned comment of this video or in the description if you're watching this on Odyssey or Library. Thank you very much for watching. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.